Okay, YouTube, I've got two robo lawnmowers that have promised me the ability to take my lawn care routine off my hands completely and to take care of this lawn, which, if you're like me, is full of divots, crabgrass, kids' toys, mole holes, hills, slopes, and uneven terrain. So I'm hoping that one of these two, either the Anthbot or the Hooki, can take over my job as a lawn care specialist and let me just sit back, relax, and not do any more lawn maintenance at all. We'll see how it turns out. The Anthbot actually has this base station here that has this RTK GPS antenna, and this has to be positioned in a place where you don't have interference from things like your roof line or trees. So it's got to be positioned close enough to your house that you're able to run the charging cord, right? See, we have the charging cord here that has to be run to an outlet that we have plugged in over here. So that's not ideal. But the largest drawback to the Anthbot is the fact that that RTK antenna has to be not blocked by a tree or a roof line. There's the charging base station. And the Hooki has a similar problem, but the Hooki doesn't have an RTK antenna. It just has the base station on its own. Now, the base station is significantly bigger and has this crazy blue reflective, I'm assuming is a target, so the robot can find that as it comes home. But they're about the same size, except for the height and the color on the Hooki is significantly different.
So the first thing that you're going to need to do is map your yard. And I probably made about 6 or 7 different maps. And you do that using the app based on your cell phone, and you control it with like a virtual joystick on the screen. But it's a little bit tricky to use, and the robots don't really respond super quickly, so it takes a while to get that map built. Once the map is built, then you go into the app and you change your settings, like how frequently to mow, what height you want the grass to be cut, to add any like no-go zones or areas that you don't want the robot to use. This is the Anthbot app. Both apps work really well. This is the Hooki app. I like the UI of the Hooki app a little bit better. I think it's just a little bit more user-friendly. But in general, both apps are really easy to use. They work well. They don't crash. They don't have any issues. And it takes just a handful of minutes to get used to it.
What I didn't know going into this is that there's no actual like regular lawnmower blade, which is like your long metal piece that spins. Instead, it has these replaceable, essentially razor blades. I mean, these are razor sharp and they're double-sided, so you can flip them over as they wear down. But you can see as this thing spins, right, the centrifugal force pushes the blades out and cuts the grass. This, I'm guessing, is some sort of flywheel or maybe like a deflective wheel, so if it hits something large, it can kind of just move it out of the way. But you've got a series of 5 blades, and this is the same on both of these mowers. They operate the exact same way. They have these replaceable, removable blades, which I guess is to be determined whether or not the longevity of these things, how long they last. Like if you hit a rock or a stick, like is it going to break one of these, or is it just going to fold away and not be of concern, and just have them replaced as they get dull. Flip them over, use them again, and then when they get super dull on the other side, just go ahead and replace both of them.
So we set them loose in the backyard and in the front yard. The first thing we did was we launched the Hooki in the front yard, followed by the Ant robot in the backyard, and we wanted to see sort of how they did, right? We hadn't mown the grass yet this year. We set them loose on uncut lawn. They had a variety of terrain. They had a variety of hill slopes. They had some sticks. They had a bunch of leaves because we wanted to see just how well they cut. And right off the bat, the first thing we noticed was that the Hooki started to get stuck. It got stuck in a few divots on the lawn. It got stuck along the walkway. It actually pinched like the front sensor in on the walkway there and got wedged between the walkway and the grass. But in general, both robots did a fair job cutting the actual grass. The Anthbot got hung up on some of the taller stuff. Like you can see here, right? It ended up avoiding the really tall grass. It didn't even go through. It just kind of went around it. But the both robots, after a couple passes, ended up cutting the lawn pretty well, well enough that I was really impressed with just how the lawn looked. Even though these blades were those tiny little razor blades.
What I think is probably one of the nicest features to these robots is just how quiet they are. The operation, I don't want to call it silent, but it is very, very close to being silent. You can hear it running right now, and the only thing I hear are the birds chirping. I don't hear any of the robot at all. The other thing to consider is that these things are really difficult to move around because there's not handles, and they're large and they weigh a lot because they have big batteries inside of them, right? So Again, it's not as big as your traditional gas-powered lawnmower, but especially on the Hooki, there's not really a good handle, right? So when you go to pick these up and move them, like, sure, you can grab the wheels, but they're dirty. Like, I kind of feel funny grabbing it around the charger because I'm afraid I'm going to break something in the plastic or like peel up the plastic trim around it. So when you do have to move it, it's just sort of awkward. And as much as I like this little Anthbot and the job that it does on the lawn, one of the downsides for me is it's not going to do a good job cutting the edge. So what I mean by that is the sensors in it will not allow it to get close to this pathway because I think it feels that it's an edge and it's going to fall off. So it only cuts to about here. And so I'm going to have to come back and manually cut this with either a traditional lawnmower or a weed whacker. So the lawn is never going to be 100% maintained by the robot, or at least my lawn is never going to be 100% maintained by the robot, but it's going to do close to 90% or more of the work, and it's going to save me a ton of time. So for me and my yard, at least, the Anthbot is a much better choice for us. It just doesn't get stuck as often. It seems to work really well in terms of cutting the grass. It's going to require more maintenance for us to be able to trim closer to the walkway, but the fact that I don't have to intervene nearly as much as I do with the Hooki in terms of getting it out from being stuck is probably the biggest benefit for us in our yard. I don't think anything's going to be perfect in these situations because everybody's yards are a little bit different in terms of the quality of the grass, the layout of their features, whether they have, swing sets and walkways. But at least for me and our experience, the Genie 1000 by the Anthbot is definitely the clear winner between these two robots.